Hello there, Ray here. I'm joined by Comet, one of the fellow ProtoTech members.
Hello?
And today behind us, we would like to show you guys a couple different types of TNT inventions that go along with 1.13.1, some three-dimensional TNT queries. And at the end of the video, we'll give a short setup tutorial for the final device that we came up with. This is a three-dimensional double prime TNT query. What this allows you to do is to clear out area that the TNT can reach, so you have to be within range of it, and it goes back and forth and slowly clears out this wall. Every time it makes one pass, it's going to move itself forward. This is good for clearing out large areas very easily, since you only have to build up this contraption as well as that one, and just put the distance between them as wide as your perimeter. With this device, you do have to come in and remember to move the liquids as you see them, as well as remove any obsidian that's going to block the TNT. Although the TNT does a pretty good job at removing blocks even underneath of the obsidian in most cases. This three-dimensional TNT query will replace the old one that Pingu and I designed up in 1.12. So this is the new one that you'll be using in 1.13.1, possibly even future versions. We'll talk more about this design later in the video, but first we want to talk a little bit of history about how we came up with this design.
So this is the TNT tuber that we use. It tubes in both directions, and it was featured in Ray's 1.13.1 TNT tubing video. We basically put two designs on an engine, as you can see right here. This is the first design that we came up with, but we weren't really happy about it because it had this quite massive return station, and we just thought that we could do a whole lot better. So here you can see how the returning would work. So then we took another look at the TNT tubers, and we basically noticed that these two blocks here, they were needed for the tube in both directions, but they basically could be any blocks. So we replaced them here with an observer and a piston. And this means that you can integrate the TNT tubers into the engine. And this means that you have to use less segments, and that makes the whole three-directional quarry a whole lot easier.
This is the final design by Comet, and instead of having both of the TNT tubers on the same segment, you put them on separate ones, and this is actually quite a small design, even though that there is two different segments moving the TNT tubers.
The TNT tuber flying machine is stopped in this extended position. It's stopped by this piston right here. And the advantage of this is that you can now first move the tuber parts, and afterwards move this limestone extension here that connects the two tubers to automatically launch the flying machine again. So now you can see that in action. And the advantage of this is that it automatically launches the flying machine again. So here you can see the station without the flying machine inside it. It's really simple. Just a few pistons here that push the all the parts forward, as well as some pistons that push the minecart forward.
And there's an observer that updates it. The observer on top of there tells the rest of this machine to move forward.
So these are the return stations, and they have the sticky piston that is butted, and it will extend when the observer hits the sticky pistons, as you could see there. And this will extend the sticky piston and stop the flying machine. Then the slime block is moved in front of the observer, and that updates the flying machine and sends it back.
And notice how also these devices that return it move themselves forward 1 meter. Now I'm going to show you how you can take this flying machine and apply it into your very own survival world to easily make a perimeter, which you can use for like a mob farm in the future. So the first thing you want to do in making a minimum effort perimeter using this three-dimensional TNT query is to look for a location to do that in. If you want to find a location that's ideal, this will minimize the amount of work you have to do later. So it really pays to do some little bit of work up front. That way you don't have to do a whole bunch of extra work moving liquids. If you do know the seed of your world, you can use a tool such as like a mist to look at the biomes around you and look for ideal biomes as well as areas that you could potentially put in a perimeter. So if you look around in our world, you can see some areas that are pretty flat. This biome here is a desert, this is a savanna, and this is a plains. They're all relatively flat areas. You see there's a little bit of mountain hills there. Also notice that all the liquids, such as like the rivers and big oceans, are outside of this. So these are the type of areas they will look for when trying to decide where to put in perimeter. And so I just went there and teleported here. So this is where I'm standing. I set my render distance to 8. This means that there's 8 chunks that way, that way, that way, that way, as well as 1 chunk that I'm inside of. And this is the typical size of the smallest perimeter that you would want to make. You might want to make it a little bit bigger, but this would be the smallest. Now, as you see with that render distance, I can stay in the middle, and there's really no like rivers or oceans, big water sources that are showing up. There's also no really tall mountains or anything in the area. Now, next thing you want to check for is looking for liquids. We see a little small lava pool there, not very much. But the biggest and most annoying liquids to clean up is the lava lakes that are down in the caves. So if you go way down here, you can see that there's some lava lakes over in this direction, some over there, a couple there, not very much. For most part, there's some there as well, but it's pretty much cleared of lava lakes. So that kind of means that won't be too much work for you to do. There is some liquids inside of here, just some small ones, nothing really too much. So this location here is pretty ideal for coming in and using this three-dimensional TNT Quarry to blow up this whole entire area. So now that you got your area chosen, you want to look for the tallest block inside of this area, because this could be a potential place that the TNT machine could crash into. So if I look around, I see some trees are there. Now the trees you can easily knock down. I also see some like sand dunes over there kind of tall. So what you want to do is figure out how high they are. So let's go check them out. So they're about Y level. If we look at this, it says we're looking at block level 73. So let's just say from the center of our perimeter, that is probably the highest thing. If there's some trees that are higher, we'll just knock those down. And if there's anything else that's easily knocked down, you can go ahead and do that. This will allow you to be able to pretty much clear out the entire area just with one pass of this machine. So as the dunes were at Y level 73, we just go 10 meters above them, and this is where we'll build up the bottom piece of the TNT duper. Now from the center here, I want to find a corner to start building the TNT duper on, and I just want to find a landmark over there on the top right. I kind of see that cactus that's kind of standing up. Well, this will be the spot that we will build up the TNT duper, the main part that's going to push the contraption forward. And then about 17 chunks that way, we'll build up the returning station. I went 10 meters above the tallest block, and I went to the right-hand side of one of the sides that I looked at on the perimeter. This is going to be the device that has the TNT as well as the part that's going to push it forward. And the returning stations are going to be over there. So I'm just going to start building it up. And pretty much what we're going to build up first is the two TNT dupers, and then we'll build up the rest of the device around it. So the TNT will go underneath here, and then the chorus plant will go right over here. Then on top of them, we're going to put the minecart. We won't put it in right now. We have observer that's going to update the piston above it, which is facing backwards, and this is going to pull the entire machine forward. Then on and off switch is just this redstone block here. Now this segment here is going to be pulled by a piston. And this piston is going to be on a different segment, which is going to be updated by this observer. There'll be 4 slimes in between those, and over here we're going to have another piston, which is going to pull the other segment. We got another identical segment right over here, just like that one over there. Instead of the glass, we're going to have some pistons, which are going to help the flying machine move forward. So there's going to be a piston there. There it's going to be updated by observer that's in the back of it like that. And then we have some slimestone that allows it to attach itself to. And this segment also gets a TNT as well as a dead coral right there. And just like the other one, we won't put in the minecart until later. This piston here is going to be pulling a segment which has some observers on it, as well as some pistons on it. So there's going to be an observer that's going to be pointing into that block, and that block's going to be updated by 2 pistons, which will push this segment here forward. Then this segment will also have another piston that's attached to it, which will pull a different segment forward, which is hooked on back here, which is attached to this one. So it comes over 4, and then it goes over this direction. And just like the other one, it's going to have 2 pistons underneath of it. And these pistons are going to be updated by an observer, which is behind them. Then they're going to hook onto another segment, and this is just going to add in some more delay. This segment has a piston, which is going to push stuff in front of it, as well as is also going to have an observer, which will update another piston, which is going to be over here. Just like that. Then on top here, we're going to have 4 blocks of glass. It could be any block, but glass works nicely because it doesn't create light updates down below. We're going to have a redstone block here, and then we're going to put in our piston, which is going to go right here. It's going to be butted by that. Then in front of that piston, he's going to be pushing a couple more pieces of glass in front, and then in front of that, we're going to have some slimestone. This slime is going to go all the way around and go and move this piston here, so just like that, and you just completed a full loop with this system. So now you want to prime the system by putting in the minecarts in each of these systems. What you do is just have this rail over here and put the minecart on top of the rail, then power this piston, Then you go ahead and remove the power as well as that scaffolding block. You just do the same thing for this side. Move the rail over here, the minecart onto it, power it, remove the power as well as the scaffolding block. Now the system is prime. You don't want to update those TNT, otherwise they will drop down and they will update. You also want to remove any scaffolding they have in this area. Next thing that you want to do is go ahead and build a returning station for this. In which case you want to figure out where are the coordinates of this observer right here. So just look at the observer, and what I'll do is open up F3. See, I'm looking at these coordinates, and then I'll look at the block that's beside it. Now see the difference? And what I'm looking at right here is just this number right here, and I can see that it's changing from here to there. And this is the number I want to keep track of. Over here, you can see this is 381. I go over to this one, and this is at 386. Those are the two numbers you want to keep track of, as well as the Y level. So you can just take a screenshot of those. So now to put in the return stations, what I would do is just press F3 and G, and you can see the chunk here. And now you just count off as many chunks as you want the perimeter to be wide. So if we wanted to make like a 18 chunk wide one or a 17 chunk one, you just count it out. I think we can make it 17 chunks. I'm just going to count out to 17. So the 17th chunk is right here. And now what I have to do is look at that screenshot with the coordinates and put the observers for the return station at those exact coordinates. So now I'm at the other end, and you can see that these two coordinates right here, as well as this one, match the ones that are over there. We just look at our screenshot. And this is where one of the updating machines is going to be. And then what we'll do, we'll count over 4, and then this is where the next one will be. So this is how they're going to be set up. As you can see, right where we have the glass, right behind it, we're going to have the slimestone. That's just some scaffolding there. And there is our other glass. This one is set at the coordinates 81, and this one's at 86. So 386 is that one. And then we just got the slime block, and then we have the sticky piston on this side, and a normal piston back one. That's just our markers. We can move those as well. This is exactly the same. And then the final thing you'll do is put in some redstone blocks here and here. Now you can put some glass on top of here if you just want to prevent the lightning from coming down and updating these, or if you want snow layers in such a cold biome, prevent them from getting updated, or if you want to also prevent mobs from spawning on these, because if you're flying the other flying machine and you're coming here as a player, if a skeleton's on here or something, or even like a creeper, it'll see you and it'll blow up or try to shoot at you. Then what I would normally do is take a backup of this world and test it and just make sure it's going to work. So on the main side here, you can also swap some of these blocks out with some light sources. If you're afraid that mobs will spawn on top of it, and you're also riding it, then they might try to shoot at you. The reason why you would be riding this machine is to keep inside of entity processing chunks. This means that the minecart is an entity and needs to be processed in those chunks. If you walk too far away from it, then it's going to be in lazy processing chunks, in which case the machine will be able to move away, but the minecart will not. It'll be left behind and it will cause the machine to break. So one of the best things you can do is just ride with it. Otherwise, make sure that it's always clearly within view. Make sure there's at least 2 chunks between this machine and the very outside edge where you can see. So after you made a backup and possibly even tested it, make sure it's working properly, you can go ahead and start it. So what I recommend is just AFKing in like a minecart like this one right here. And then you can just sit in here, make sure you don't move around. Otherwise, if the minecart falls off, it could break. Then you can move with the machine, therefore it will always be in entity processing chunks. And you won't have the problem of it unloading and breaking. If you do that, then you just want to go ahead and put in some light sources here. Make sure that no mobs can spawn on this slimestone when you're moving away from it. As long as you're AFKing on this small part that moves, you won't have any mobs that are spawning right beside you. But once you leave the area, then they are able. Also went to the other side and put some light sources on there as well. Now, if you really don't want to AFK with the flying machine, you can go ahead and stay in the center like you did in the very beginning and just increase your render distance by about 5 more. So my render distance is right now at 8. If I just up this to 13 and stay in the center, then there's a good chance that this will all be within inside of entity processing chunks. Now, before you go ahead and start this machine, just make sure that there isn't any liquids, such as right over there. You can see there is a lava pool that is in the way, and make sure you go ahead and just remove that. And as you move the machine forward, you want to just remove the liquids as you see them. If you choose to remove the liquids as you see them, you are able to do this entire perimeter in one pass if you have the machine down low enough. If not, if you want to just AFK this and then come back later and then remove the liquids, you're going to be left with some areas that are being covered up and protected by the liquids, in which case you would have to try to go ahead and remove all the liquids and then run this machine again, or just mine out whatever's left. Obsidian is another thing that this machine is unable to destroy. So if you see it, you can always mine it out. But for the most part, this machine does a pretty good job at even removing blocks underneath of the obsidian. So you could just leave it there until the very end. So to start it up, you just hop in the minecart, knock out this redstone block here, and then you can fly with the flying machine, and it is going to go along and start dropping TNT and start blowing up the surrounding area. If you want the TNT duper to reach all the way down inside of the crevices of the bedrock, all in one pass, you want to make sure that the TNT here is about Y level 85 or lower. Ours is at 84 with this setup here, and this will allow it to go down inside of the bedrock and remove those blocks as well to get nice and clean. You can go a little bit higher, but if you go up to like Y level 90, then there will be a layer of blocks way down at the bedrock level. So if you're doing something that is really tall, you might have to run this machine twice. One to kind of remove the top layer, and then another machine to remove even a lower layer. Once the TNT reaches its end, it's going to run into those bumpers, which are going to update the observers and send the machine back the other direction. Now, if you want to stop the flying machine, go ahead and just put a redstone block here, and then the machine will stop as it moves into this area. To clear a 256 block by 256 block area, it'll take about 18 hours of AFKing on that machine. Then you also need to remember to remove any liquids as you see them, or remove them ahead of time, but you can kind of see what it's going to look like afterwards. Went ahead and removed the liquids as I seen them. Didn't really bother on the edges. Even like the obsidian here, you can see that I didn't have to really remove it because it did a really good job at removing everything underneath of it. Come in, you can take it out later. If you don't remove the liquids, this is what it looks like. So here you can see there's like a river, and this is why it's a big deal to take time to try to find areas that there is no rivers in, because this river is kind of a lot of water that you would have to remove. Also see like this was a lava lake that was up high and how it kind of drizzled down on top of everything. So any of these lakes that are not at the very bottom, you should definitely take the time to remove them as you see them. The very lower lakes, you could leave them in and take them out at the very end. This is what they typically look like if you would leave those in, just kind of way down low at Y level 10. Now, if you are lazy and you don't want to remove the liquids as you see them, you can let this happen on purpose, and then you can just come in here and remove it. Something like this, where is a whole lake that is on top of the water, you can remove with some sponges. And then, yeah, once you get these sponges in place, you can pretty much remove all the sources pretty easily. As you see, just like that, they'll update it. So there's really not that much water that's here that's making this huge mess. A lot of these are just single sources, like this one here. If I just grab that one, this whole thing's gonna go down. And then once you have went ahead and removed these lakes, then you can just come in and run the machine all over again. If you don't want to be here as the liquids show up and be removing them, then you can just always come in and do it afterwards, and then just run the machine again. This is probably a little bit easier. It allows you to do more AFKing and less work, since at this point you pretty much exposed all the liquids. Now there still could be liquids that are hiding inside this big huge chunk here, but most of the time you would expose them all. It's really not that hard to clean up. A lot of these single sources are just one little piece that is making this huge mess, and once they're removed, it will all slowly go downwards. But overall, it does pay to take time to void big, huge water sources like that river there. That way you don't have to clean them up later on. The biggest thing is when you are taking out the liquids, remember that the machine needs to be entity processing chunks, so don't go like working on one side of the perimeter while the flying machine's on the other side, otherwise it will break. If you do notice that your machine has broken, meaning that the minecarts are missing, all you have to do is stop the system by powering that again, and then when it completely stops, just come in here and put in those minecarts again by doing the same thing as we did before, power them just like that, and then removing that, and that's how you fix it again. I've also provided a world download to this world in the description if you'd like to check this out and maybe even use this to help you build it. Big thanks to Comet for letting me showcase his build. If you would like to check out his channel, he does tons of crazy types of slimestone machines, like TNT dupers and quarries, and all sorts of crazy stuff, all of it which we hope to build up on the ProtoTech server. So go ahead and check out his channel as well as subscribe to him to see more stuff like that for the future of 1.13. So we'd like to thank you guys for watching, and if you found this interesting, show us with a like and share this with others. If you'd like to see more crazy stuff like this for 1.13 and beyond, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell button to get notifications. And if you have any questions about this, just ask us down in the comments. Bye-bye!
Bye.